Hey everyone, it's Wednesday, time for Wisdom Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. I have had quite a few patients coming in recently just dealing with a lot of anxiety, and certainly I see that just out in the world anyway. And the last 3 years have certainly been a great setup to increase anxiety and understanding that a lot of that is then raising cortisol, and that increases the counter-regulatory hormones that we've talked about, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which are adrenaline, and how that can just, if it sits in the body, just can continue to escalate and perpetuate an anxiety type response. We're not necessarily talking about acute panic attack, but just an underlying ill feeling of being overwhelmed and really unable to just deal with things. Your bandwidth is just really narrowed down, and just not much ability to get the things that you would like to get done. And so I thought I would talk a little bit about but just another type of way of trying to manage this without going to pharmaceuticals. We've talked a lot about L-theanine, but I wanted to talk about ashwagandha. Now, ashwagandha is something that has been around for millennia. Has been known in the Indian culture, and we have come to know it as an adaptogen. But the name itself comes from Sanskrit, and it's interesting. It stands for smell of a horse, even though it may have a slight smell that way because it's a root. It really is, the idea is that just gives you the strength and vitality of a horse. And so just with that as a backdrop, let's kind of dive into ashwagandha and see what it is that it can do for us, because it is known as an adaptogen. And in our world, an adaptogen means that it's an herbal plant that is grown in a harsh environment and has had to adapt to this harsh environment. Just like us, we are living in ups and downs and in times of harsh environments, so to speak, or just really stressful periods. And having this as a tool can be really helpful. And it's amazing some of the things that it can do, because it can reduce anxiety, it can increase our mood and improve our mood, and it can lower stress hormones. And there's very little in the world that can really do that. And so let's just kind of look through some of the things that it can do for us. It definitely is a natural just stress reliever. It has the ability to modulate this cortisol response because it has these steroid type molecules in there, and these are called witholinides. It's kind of an odd name, but withanones or witholinides, and they are steroid-like molecules, and therefore have the ability there. And there's multiple different ones in this bark, this root of the plant that we have come to know as ashwagandha. But it releases these types of molecules that can help really modulate cortisol and help turn it down. And in addition, it lowers inflammation. And maybe it lowers inflammation first, and as a result, it lowers cortisol. But however it works, and it has different mechanisms of action, it can work on the IL-6, the interleukin-6 line of inflammation. It can lower NF-kappa B, and we've talked about these, and not that you need to know specifics here, but just to know that there are mechanisms of action that are quite powerful in terms of helping to modulate not only the stress response, but the inflammatory response, and therefore has great benefit for all of us in many areas. This first one being the ability to be just a natural stress reliever. It can also improve mood, but by doing so can improve cognition and focus and memory. So a lot of people find that that's helpful, and we lose that because we lose that bandwidth. We're not sleeping well. with anxiety. And so when you can calm all that down, it helps lower that inflammatory response in the brain and helps us to be more cognitively available, and our memory improves as well. Because it lowers the inflammatory response, it can improve energy. The amount of fatigue that we see amongst all levels and all generations, even young folks today, it's just amazing to me, the amount of fatigue in our 20 and 30-year-olds. Certainly it's not that unexpected as we age, but certainly we want to maintain as much energy as possible. So ashwagandha might be a really good opportunity there for some folks who are really dealing with major fatigue issues. There is some interesting data about it boosting testosterone, therefore libido. And as we get back to that sort of vitality of a horse, we sense this improvement in overall well-being and performance, not only from just a muscle activity standpoint, but from a sexual performance as well. There have been some noted studies that are showing that it can help with aging issues with performance, even in the bedroom. It can reduce a lot of the anxiety symptoms because it helps improve our sleep. So by improving sleep, it begins to broaden our bandwidth and allows us to have more ability to cope with things that are going on in our life. It helps us for many women, helps with fertility, and with men as well. It might improve sperm counts. So if you're dealing with any of these types of problems, you might look at this and see if this might be a way to go. Again, by lowering cortisol and lowering that stress response, decreasing inflammation, we find that a lot of systems in the body begin to work better. And therefore can improve heart health and gives us a lot of ability and broad spectrum benefits with just menstrual irregularities and PMS type symptoms, menopausal symptoms. I know for me that when I get overly stressed, we all have certain tells in our body. I get a little patch of scaly skin on my ears, and I always know to reach for my ashwagandha and take that for a while. I know that when I was going through my own stressful period with just migrating the path of menopause and going through that the adaptogens were really helpful. And it was certainly an improvement as far as sleep is concerned, in addition to just doing hormonal therapy. So these are ways that can be quite beneficial, again, because of the overall benefit of lowering inflammation and cortisol. And we do have different ways that you can take it, but the best way is just orally and about 500 milligrams a day. They've done some studies looking at the optimal dose, and that appears to be the optimal dose in terms of lowering anxiety scores. And then they've also looked at just muscle performance and improvement in muscle, and there's some benefit there too. So I think, again, and it's likely because when we're very inflamed, we break down muscle more. So if you can lower inflammation while you're trying to build muscle, then you're going to have less breakdown while you're continuing to try to build muscle. And we've been talking a lot about that these last few weeks, the importance of minimizing sarcopenia or muscle loss as we age. So just another insight into another supplement and another way to approach a lot of the things that we are dealing with today, particularly anxiety, problems with sleep, problems with energy, and ashwagandha might be a well-sourced option for folks rather than just immediately diving into a pharmaceutical. Hope that's helpful information. You all have a great week, and we'll talk again next week.